Sanjeev Saran, you're right. Corruption is a global phenomenon. You find corruption even in the best of democracies. But what makes Indian democracy very unique and very cruel is the fact that corruption is a everyday phenomenon that even the poorest have to deal with. In the developed world, in many of the big, larger democracies, better democracies, corruption is isolated at the highest levels. There, the constables don't ask you for a bribe. You don't need to pay somebody to get your apartment registered, or you don't need to bribe someone to get your child an admission. But in India, corruption is part of our everyday life. That makes it cruel, that makes it appalling, and that makes our lives almost intolerable. That's very unique about India. Our corruption is all pervasive. It's at the highest levels, and it's at the bottom level. At the bottom level, corruption or bribe becomes the deciding factor for someone to live or die, and that makes Indian corruption very unique. Nishta, corruption, at the root of India's corruption, I would say, is the lack of transparency in the political funding. Our political parties today are the world's largest black money operations. They need billions of dollars annually in black money to run their apparatus and fight elections, and that's where the large-scale corruption begins at the bottom, at the top, and that's also the reason for large-scale widespread corruption at the bottom rung. So, if we could clean up our political funding, I think that would be a very significant step forward. The second thing is our regulatory systems, our laws, our courts, they are all archaic. So because the laws are very complicated and bureaucrats and decision makers of government at all levels have a lot of power over our lives, that adds to it. So we need to look at one, immediately freeing political funding, making it transparent. Second, we need to push our governments, both at the state and the center, to simplify laws. There are enough model codes, model rules available around the world which we can easily adopt. Anaka, yes, journalism is corrupted largely, especially the mainstream media, because of various factors, especially because of the model that it has created itself for. It derives most of its profits, most of its revenues from advertisements, and our governments remain one of the largest advertisers, and our private corporates are very important in their profit making. So the corporates and the governments have undue influence over journalism. Second is that mainstream media houses are significantly used as influence peddling mechanisms by a lot of corporates. These two are the key reasons why I would say Indian Constitution is not a document of fantasy. It's a doable thing. It's a workable document, and it's one of the most sophisticated treaties that you can find anywhere in the world. And we can find countries in Scandinavia and other parts, or in New Zealand, or we could find many of those countries have implemented constitutions very similar to ours, and are robust in their existence.